Hey everybody, welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I'm Rockin' Robbie Billups, and it's time for the weekly comic book review. That's right everybody, thanks for checking out the video. I am Rockin' Robbie Billups. This is the weekly comic book review. It's the show where I read a lot of comic books and I let you know what I thought about them. But first, I want to invite you to like this video, share this video, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It really helps us out. We appreciate it. And we always start with the pick of the week. This week's pick of the week, Superman, The Space Age, issue number 1. From DC Comics. Now, this is written by Mark Russell with artwork by Michael and Laura Allred, and I thought this book was phenomenal. Now, this is a $10 book, but it is 80 pages of straight story. A nice self-contained story that's also part of a larger epic. So it does tell a thematically sound and narratively resonating story all in this one issue, albeit in 80 pages, and it also sets up kind of the vision and purpose and direction of this series. I believe this is a 3-issue series, going to be 1 issue every couple months, I believe. But first of all, I'm a huge Mike Allred fan. I love Mike and Laura Allred. I love their artwork. It's a very retro pop art, kind of 60s kind of vibe, Silver Age. This is a big tribute to Silver Age Superman, Silver Age DC actually, and I saw Bleeding Cool, there was an article that said it kind of works as a prequel to Crisis on Infinite Earths, not meaning that this like sets up Crisis on Infinite Earths or anything like that, but one of the big premises behind this issue is Superman early in his career finds out that the world is going to end. I really loved this book. The artwork was masterful, elegant. I've been a fan of the Allred since the Madman days back in the 90s when I was getting into them. I'm always vibing on some Allred stuff, and it works so well here. One way to describe this book could be kind of like, think of the Ultimate line. Think of Ultimate Spider-Man. Imagine if they did Ultimate Spider-Man, but with Superman back in the Silver Age. It's kind of what this is. It's kind of taking everything we know about Superman, the past, the present, and the future, and kind of being able to tell one cohesive story set in the Silver Age in real time, leaning in to the idea that Crisis on Infinite Earths is going to happen in 20-something years. But all of that aside, it does a great job of building up the character of Superman, building up the world of Superman, and not just stuff like Lois and Perry and Jimmy and Ma and Pa Kent, but also Batman, Green Lantern, the Justice League. All of it is working really fantastically well, and I will go out on a limb and say that I think this is the best Mark Russell superhero comic I have ever read. And of course, I'm a mark for Mike Allred, a mark for Laura Allred. I thought this book was absolutely fantastic. I know it's $10, but it's one of the best Superman books I have read in years. I can't even remember the last time a Superman book was my pick of the week. I can't even remember, well, maybe like a Grant Morrison one or something. I don't know. Superman Space Age number 1. This one won me over. Now, I know that Superman and $10 books aren't for everybody, so I got another pick. This isn't a co-pick or nothing, but the second favorite book of mine is Detective Comics 1062. 1062. This is the first issue from writer Rom V. You know, I'm a big fan of Rom V's work. I was very excited to hear that he was coming onto the pages of Detective Comics, and it's totally impressed me. So the artwork by Raphael Albuquerque is absolutely splendid. Great storytelling, a great use of the line work, of the composition, of the design. It's got a great flow. The color is absolutely fantastic because it's Dave Stewart, one of the best colorists in the business and has been for literally decades. So Rom understands the voice of Bruce and Batman and does it in a really kind of dark but still fun kind of way. There's moments of Batman like timing himself. Well, how long will it take me to get to that rooftop? Like, you like seeing Batman kind of have fun with it, right? Also, structurally, this story resembles like an opera song, right? Like a tragedy, a dark tragedy, and there's some new villain or new sets of villain that are making their appearance known in Gotham, and they got one in for Batman. And I absolutely loved this book. I loved the subtextual stuff. I loved the on-the-surface action and fun of it. This was a really solid issue of Batman. There is a backup story by Simon Spurrier and Danny on the artwork. Gordon focused, and it was pretty good. Very dense, but that's what you want for an 8-pager to actually make it have some impact and some oomph, right? So overall, I loved this. Fantastic new direction for Detective Comics because of Ron V, Albuquerque, Dave Stewart, Cy Spurrier, Danny, and more. Fantastic book. Speaking of Ron V, we've got The Swamp Thing, issue 15. The penultimate issue of Ron V Swamp Thing. I am sad to see it go because I really feel like we could get like a 50, 60, 70, 80, 100 issue run that would be absolutely fantastic, but this has been, regardless of its length, and no matter how much I want it to continue, all good things must come to an end. Anyway, it's building up to that climax in a really fulfilling kind of way. All these different things that have been going on, these new concepts, these new ideas, the Parliament of Gears, this new avatar of the Swamp Thing, Levi, how this is all working with his family history, with his past, with his girlfriend, with the world, with this new character, Trinity. How is this all going to come together so beautifully and so perfectly in the narrative and in the thematic material? Well, it's because Ron V's doing it, and he's aided by Mike Perkins, Mike Spicer, giving us this great, gritty, textured, and organic feeling artwork that is perfectly suited for the Swamp Thing. Whoever comes into Swamp Thing afterwards, and this does wrap up in the next issue, but I feel like this character is going to continue on, and this has been something special. This has been a book truly implanted firmly into the roots of what made Vertigo so great back in the 90s, what made titles like Swamp Thing so great, even though they weren't Vertigo at first. They eventually kind of helped create that mold. This is honoring that mold and doing something new with it and creating its own mold. I'm loving Ron V's Swamp Thing. We also got a new one, DC Mech, issue number 1. This is the first part of a 6-issue series. It's okay. It's all right. So what it is it's like an Elseworld, an alternate reality where Darkseid shows up right after the Justice Society has won World War II. Darkseid shows up. Actually, it's just a parademon shows up, just tears ass through like half of the JSA. And now they know that Darkseid is coming, so they get to spend years preparing for the arrival. And now we're on the new dawn of heroes, Flash and Batman and other things. And they now have spent their lives preparing for the invasion of the parademons from Darkseid. But they're using mech. They're using technology, mech technology. So Superman isn't just Superman. He's a dude in a mech suit that gives him the powers of Superman. And Flash isn't just a dude who runs fast. He's a dude who operates a suit that runs fast. So it's got some cool twists on familiar topics and tropes. But all in all, it was all right. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't supremely breaking new ground or anything like that. But if you like mech suits, if you like the Justice League, if you like the alternate Elseworlds type stuff, you might want to check that one out. Then we got Robin, issue number 16. So I thought this book might fall apart once we get to the conclusion of the Lazarus tournament, the Lazarus Island stuff. And even though we have maybe hit the conclusion of the Lazarus tournament, we have not gotten to the end of the Lazarus saga, and that is continuing here. So you got Damian, you got Connor Hawke, and some other people who are left over and left dangling from that said tournament. They are now taking up residence on this island, trying to turn it into something good, a refuge, a safe haven for them, if you will. Meanwhile, Flatline is gone. Supposedly she's killed Lord Deathman. Lord Deathman is crazy. They're trying to interrogate them. There are some twists. There are some turns. I'm really liking Robin. Joshua Williamson understands the character of Damian Wayne and how not to just write him as an annoying one-trick, one-note pony. He actually understands and gets the depth of this character that has been provided from years from writers like Peter Tomasi, Grant Morrison, and mostly just those two. But Joshua Williamson, we can add his name to that list because 16 issues in, that's been a great Damian series. Then we got Deathstroke Incorporated, issue number 11, the second part of Deathstroke Year 1. So if you've ever wanted to know, how did Slade Wilson become Deathstroke? Here you go. I never read any of the Wolfman Perez, New Teen Titans stuff. It's one of the holes in my comic book history that one day I definitely do need to fill. Don't worry. I do have the first trade paperback. I just got to read it. Just got to read it, you know, and one day I will. But until now, I mean, until then, I should say, this is a really cool way just to kind of look at the history of Deathstroke. And now knowing what we know about his children and other things that they didn't necessarily know at the beginning of the Deathstroke story, you can integrate that in. So when DC does these year one stories, sometimes it can feel like they can be a cash grab, but I kind of actually like this, and it's giving me a different perspective on this character, in light especially of what's going on with Dark Crisis. So I'm enjoying this book. It's pretty cool. Ed Brisson stepped in after a really solid run and has continued that momentum by going back into the past. I'm liking it. Batman Fortress issue number 3. So we finally get to the premise of this whole series, which is Batman having to break into Superman's fortress against an alien invasion, right? Superman's missing, Justice League's incapacitated. It's up to Batman and Batman alone, and he's seeking out some help in this issue. So there are elements of it that work, but it took a long time to get to that premise, and it's actually just the recognition of the premise that's happened. It actually hasn't even happened yet. But that being said, this writing is incredibly verbose, exposition heavy, and it's just kind of a snore, a bore, and kind of stagnant. So it's really difficult to get through, kind of dull, and I may not be coming back for any more issues. Then we got Action Comics 1045. Philip Kennedy Johnson's been doing a really good job with Superman. I love this concept. I love the War World stuff. I love the Authority. I love Mongol, and all of it. All of it's great. This story, though, it has just been moving so freaking slow. Sometimes I feel like we're just going in circles. We're kind of repeating the same events, kind of repeating the same themes, kind of just doing the same thing over and over and just slowly building up page count to click a break into a trade. So I love this story. I think it could have been edited down a little bit. I am excited to see how this develops into its ending, but I am kind of getting tired of waiting for it. Luckily, we don't have to wait much longer. I think this Johnson run's going to read a lot better collected all in one sitting. Then we got Batman One Dark Knight issue number 3. This is the final issue from DC Black Label, Prestige Plus format, written and illustrated by Jock. Basic premise of this is Batman's got to take a criminal during a blackout in Gotham City. He's got to take a criminal that everybody in the city is after from Arkham to Blackgate, or maybe from Blackgate to Arkham, something like that. So power's out, no technology, no weaponry's working. Batman and this dude carrying him across Gotham, everybody's at him. But they tie in this other story with this doctor and this kid, and it just doesn't work for me. It kind of feels boring, and then the ultimate resolution just didn't have that impact. This could have just been cool, just Batman going through the dark, powerless city with this dude coming up against obstacle to obstacle, and it just kind of loses me. And also, I really like Jock's artwork, but it just kind of feels a little rushed there. I don't know, that's just me. Then we got Sandman Universe, Nightmare Country, issue number 4. Loving this series, written by James Tynion, but it's got artwork by Lissandro Estrin. The artwork in this book is absolutely freaking phenomenal. We got Danny doing a little bit of a sequence here, throwing back to the Sandman doll's house, kind of spreading a little bit more illumination on one of those characters from that story, and I really appreciated that. I love this iteration of the Corinthian. I love this deepening mystery, these two would-be weird supernatural assassins that are after this painter who's been painting all these pictures of people with mouths for eyes. The Corinthian's intrigued, starting to remember his serial killer history. I am loving it. Fantastic stuff. Dark, horror, horrific, eeriness, creepiness, cerebralness. Really good stuff. I really like that book. From Marvel, we have Amazing Spider-Man 6. Actually, it's 900. Man, they went through 1 to 900 really quickly this time. That being said, it's actually a pretty fun issue. It's a nice one-and-done story involving the Sinister Six, involving a new villain, or should I say a new legacy take on an old villain. So I like the throwback. There's so many throwbacks, like some of the dialogue I think is actually riffed from old school Stan Lee Ditko issues of Spider-Man. It throws back to some single-digit issues, and I like that, especially for a celebratory issue like 900. If you thought that this would be the issue, though, where you find out what's been going on with Mary Jane, that ain't gonna happen. If you found out that, if you think that this is gonna be the issue where the schism chasm, what's the evil Ben Reilly, and if you think that's, nope, not here either. This is just a one and done story that really doesn't set anything up. It just tells a really good, solid story. And I liked it. Ed McGuinness on the artwork, and throughout pretty much. There's a couple little like backup stories at the end that were just okay. This is a $10 price tag. I definitely think Superman's the better deal because you're getting more of a complete story that actually you could be excited to go and check out. But Amazing Spider-Man is a good, solid issue. it just doesn't deliver any of the things that have been promised since the first issue that we don't know yet. And that's okay. But I liked this issue. I thought it was cool. Anyway, I liked it. I think a lot of people won't because they're expecting more out of it, but it's literally just a good, like, if you haven't read Spider-Man in years, you can just jump in right there and read it. It's a really good, solid story. Then we have Ant-Man #1, first of a new 4-issue series written by Al Ewing with artwork by Tom Riley. Really like the artwork. We just saw him come off of that most recent Thing miniseries, so it's going to be cool to see him do a book again, right after. I mean, I really liked his artwork on the Thing. I hear that book is actually really good. I fell out of it, but I did pick up all the issues because it is the Thing and related to the Fantastic Four. Anyway, we're here to talk about Ant-Man. So I like the art in here, and I kind of like the story concept. So there's a future Ant-Man from like the 25th century or the 26th century or something, and he has gone back into time, into the early like Silver Age days, and we get a Silver Age Hank Pym Ant-Man adventure here, but this future Ant-Man is in there as well, so it's this time travel kind of thing by Al Ewing. He likes doing the time travel. Trust me, he's not done with the time travel stuff this week. So this is cool. So it does introduce a future version of Ant-Man. It throws back to a classic feeling, old school Kirby, Lee type story, and sets up to be able to explore what exactly Ant-Man is and why there is an Ant-Man and when is there an Ant-Man. Anyway, Ant-Man #1, I thought it was pretty solid. I like the concept in that. Genis-Vell, Captain Marvel, issue #1. This is by Peter David with artwork by, as I'm looking up the artist, is it Juan Ramirez? Yes, it absolutely is. I like this book. Now, this is kind of a throwback, but still set in the modern current continuity of the Captain Marvel run by Peter David. Chris Cross was a part of that for a while as an artist. I loved that Captain Marvel run. This is from like the late 90s, early 2000s. I think it was after Avengers Forever where we were introduced to this cool new look for Genis-Vell, son of Captain Marvel, the original Captain Marvel who died, who's still dead, and this is his son, but his son died, and so did Rick Jones, and they were combined together. We talked a lot about them on the Miss Marvel show that we did, because I was talking about the Negabands all the time, how they would swap places. Anyway, this is set in modern current continuity, and it involves Rick Jones and Genis-Vell, both recently deceased, both back. It's playing fun and loose with that, but it's solving a mystery. Where in the hell's Marlowe? Nobody has tried to do anything with Marlowe. So I really liked that throwback, thought it was cool. I liked the book, I thought it was solid. I like that Peter David Captain Marvel run. Fans of that run from back in the day, you're really going to love this. I don't know how this is going to read to somebody unfamiliar. It may be a bit kind of confusing and dumb, but confusing and dumb was perfect for me because I remember, I like the old school one. Anyway, Gambit #1 is here. This is Chris Claremont doing a Gambit miniseries that's set at the time when Gambit and Storm first met each other. So he's like training Storm how to be a thief. Remember, she's been de-aged or something like that. So it's set in that time zone, but it just doesn't have that magic of Claremont's X-Men from back in those days. The dialogue is okay, and it's not as overly verbose as one might think, but the artwork's not doing it much of any favors. There's this whole bit right here, a whole page, where the art's just like, we're just going to put a head and a head, and we're going to put the city, and just fill it up with dialogue, Chris. We know you want to do that anyway. So it's cool because it does kind of tie into that stuff, but the artwork's kind of lackluster, and it's just alright. So hardcore Gambit fans, you might want to check that out. But it's always cool to see Chris Claremont actually get some work from Marvel. I mean, they pay him enough, you know. Yeah, get him to... Anyway, Iron Cat #2 is here, written by Jed MacKay. This is basically the next volume of Black Cat. But even if you haven't read Black Cat, this would be a good jumping on point. Iron Cat #1 and #2. It is based on some stuff that's happened in a previous Black Cat volume, but they catch you up on all of that. Jed MacKay has been doing a really great job with the Felicia Hardy Black Cat books. Iron Cat is no exception. So, an ex of Felicia's, who used to work together with her, trained under her with the Black Fox. The Black Fox is no longer with us, and she thinks Felicia's responsible, so she has stolen this new edition of the Iron Cat armor, which was armor that Tony had made for Felicia, that Felicia stole, then he destroyed, then he made a new version of it. Now it's been stolen by Felicia Hardy's ex, and now she is the new Iron Cat wanting to take out Felicia Hardy. A lot of exposition in issue #2, but a great setup for more action to come. But I liked this exposition because we're getting introduced to this new character. We need a little bit more backstory. Then we got Captain America, Symbol of Truth, issue #3. This is the Sam Wilson as Captain America story. First issue was all right. Second issue, a little bit better. Third issue kind of keeps that same momentum. Doesn't really build much forward, but it doesn't like stiffen up or get stagnant or anything like that. I'm enjoying this book. There's this mystery going on. These super soldier serums are going around. You got a little bit of White Wolf. You got a little bit of Crossbones. You get a little bit of Falcon. You get a little bit of Sam Wilson as Cap, and a little bit of Deadpool, and it's not too obnoxious. You do get some Doom in this issue, but not near enough. A lot of political intrigue, not kind of light on some of the action. Some of the action's pretty solid, but it does feel like it's telling these two separate stories that haven't come together yet, though it does try to bring it together towards the end of this issue. I thought it did it fairly well. Then we have Venom issue number 9. This one from Al Ewing, Brian Hitch. So Al Ewing is doing this issue, and this is actually kind of making some of the confusing stuff in recent issues of Venom involving Eddie Brock in particular, popping in and out of Dylan's life, like not making sense, saying things that contradict what he said before. Like, it's all timey-wimey type stuff, and it all gets kind of explained here. Adequately so. You got a little bit of Kang, you got a little bit of Meridius, but 9 issues in, this is trying to clear some stuff out, but honestly, this isn't what I'm reading Venom for. I'm not reading Venom for time travel, cosmic awareness, crazy stuff. I want to see him just go and, you know, kill crooks and sometimes eat their brains. I don't know. I like how ambitious this book is, and I do like it when it's focused, more grounded on the Dylan stuff by Romby, but this wild, crazy, metaphysical stuff almost, this timey-wimey stuff, I love that kind of high concept sci-fi. I just don't know what Venom is the character for that, but some interesting, cool concepts, at least. So there you go. Then we got The Variant, issue number 2. This is a Jessica Jones book. Jessica Jones is nearing the anniversary of the time when the Purple Man took over her mind, right? And so she's kind of dealing with some of that trauma, and she's worried that there's like been a mind bomb implanted in her that's going to go off and take control of her again, because another former victim of the Purple Man, that literally just happened, right? So Jessica Jones is kind of freaking out about that, and in the midst of all of this, she's being confronted by different variants of her, presumably from across the multiverse. So it's pretty cool. It's got solid artwork from Phil Noto, a great script from Gail Simone. It's not going to change your life, but it was a good, entertaining comic, and particularly entertaining for fans of Jessica Jones. Let's jump over to Image Comics. And from Image Comics, we got Public Domain, issue number 2 from Chip Zdarsky. I loved this book. I thought issue number 1 was solid, but issue number 2 was so much better. There's so many layers being explored in this book, and it's not like something high concept. It's not science fiction, but it does kind of deal with comic books and science fiction, right? So it's about the creator of this massively popular superhero. They're like on movie 5 or 6 or 8 or 10 or 20 or something, right? But the writer's always kind of taken the credit. The artist of this property, the creator, has always kind of been pushed into the background, not really given the respect. He's got these 2 kids, he's got a wife, he's got this legacy, and now he has found a possible piece of evidence, an old contract that states that he is the sole owner of this property. But of course, this property is making bajillions of dollars for this writer, for this company. Chip Zdarsky is doing work right now for Marvel and DC, and he is doing a book that is just straight up a really good exploration on how shitty of companies they have been in the past and how they can be. I really like this book, but these 2 kids, one of them is trying to encourage his father to fight for the rights to this character. You got some of this, there's a really heartbreaking moment, knowing what you know about Jack Kirby and his life and all this kind of stuff, that he drew like 16, 18 hours a day, sacrificing time with his kids, with his family, in order to provide for his family, and never really getting the full compensation or reaping the full rewards that others did off of his long time working, right? So there's this moment where, I don't want to spoil anything, but there's a moment that's kind of referencing, in particular, that home life, and holy cow, this book, Chip Zdarsky knows what he's doing. He's telling the story passionately. The artwork is decent, it gets the job done, but it is the emotional chord in this story, especially if you're familiar with the history that's kind of being alluded to here. Public Domain, I had so much fun. I love that book. Then we got Beware, The Eye of Odin, issue number 2, written by Doug Wagner, with artwork by Tim Odland. I absolutely love this book. The first issue was great, but the second issue ramps up that action. It ramps up that energy, and it's mostly just chaotic, Norse, mythic fighting here. We're running from trolls, right? We're trying to outsmart them. We're coming across these stone warriors needing help to save one of your hurt friends. It's absolutely fantastic. This is about a dude who winds up with the Eye of Odin, and he finds out that if you come into possession of the Eye of Odin, you have to return it to its rightful owner by a certain time, or you'll die a horrible death of like tons of boils and disease and all this kind of stuff. So him and a couple of friends and compatriots, right? They go on this quest to take it back to its rightful owner, which is going to be some kind of frost giant, right? But they're coming across a lot of conflict, right? And that's what's going on here. Extra size, great artwork, really a great sense of adventure and fun, while still at the same time making it feel dangerous and like it's got some high stakes. I really like Beware the Eye of Odin. That's a solid book. Then we got I Hate This Place, issue number 3. This is the best issue of this series, and I've actually liked this series. It's about this couple. One of them has recently inherited this house and this land, but it's haunted. Supposedly, it looks like there are UFO lights out there, and there's also ghosts and all kinds of stuff, and anybody who kind of shows up on this property to help them or to give them a little bit of hope just gets killed in the most horrific, grotesque type way. So now they get this dude who's a ghost hunter, even has his own TV show to come on and kind of do his thing. I like his passion. I like the way they build that character, but this is really great. So this couple, they are both excellently rendered characters. They both have their differences and they both have their conflicts, but you can feel the love between these two women, and I absolutely love it. The ghost stuff gets a little spooky, but then it gets just straight up viscerally brutal, and I love that even more. I Hate This Place, issue number 3. Really blew me away. Then we got The Scorched with issue number 8. So in this latest arc of The Scorched, writer Sean Lewis is putting the focus and the spotlight on individual members. And here it's Soulcatcher. Soulcatcher and the chick that he's with, it's revealing more of their past, how they are winding up connected to the Scorched, to Al, and what's going on now. So you're finding out more about them while they are moving the story forward and progressing, and also deepening the mystery of why Jessica wants to bring these people, this group, together in the first place. Plus more developments on Plague Spawn, which I think is one of the coolest new Spawn creations of forever. Like, I love Plague Spawn. I love the stuff that's being examined here, or the stuff that's being developed. Love it. Scorched, super cool, fun teen book. From Dynamite Comics, we have Vampirella Year 1. This is from Christopher Priest. This is the next stepping stone on the Priest saga of Vampirella, but it is also a good, perfect jumping on point. So Vampirella is telling a story. Why she's telling a story and to whom, I'll leave that up to you to see. I don't want to spoil that, but she's telling the story of her childhood, of her being raised on Draculon, losing her mother, having to fend for herself out there in the terrible wastelands and whatnot. And I found it to be really intriguing. I've been trying to jump into Christopher Priest's Vampirella run here and there, but at times I feel lost and kind of confused. This one was a great narrative, kept me engaged, kept me compelled all the way through. This is stuff that I don't know. I don't know if this is all referencing old school stuff or if this is all just new stuff that Christopher Priest has been developing and what he's got in his ideas, but I like it. I like it a lot. So it's like young kid Vampy fighting for survival on her own and getting into some crazy shit. I loved it. Vampirella Year 1, thought that was super solid. Then we got Red Sonja issue number 11. Mirka Andolfo's been doing a great job with this book. The artwork's all right at times, feels a bit rushed, a bit too frantic, but there are times where the story needs that and actually demands that. So that's kind of fun. But I really like the story. Red Sonja, the very first issue of this run, Red Sonja comes across this fire starter, right? She's like a little girl. She's got like these fire powers. She has been kidnapped by these dudes. Red Sonja saves her, and she's been spending this entire book trying to get her back to her people. She finally gets Sitha back to her people in this issue. And of course, since this isn't the final issue, some conflict has to arise, but I really like this book. I thought it had a great pace, some great dialogue, and I really like the way it's developing some stuff with the character of Red Sonja that you don't typically see in Red Sonja books. Then we got John Carter of Mars, issue number 4. This one's written by Chuck Brown, who just recently won an Eisner, won an Eisner with a few others for Best Continuing Series with Bitter Root, David F. Walker, and Sanford Green. Anyway, John Carter of Mars is a fun book. It's interesting. So some Martians have wound up on Earth, some Earthmen have wound up on Mars, so there's this invasion that's happening and the swapping of places and characters dying and coming back and then dying again. That kind of happens a lot in this one, so that's kind of weird and confusing. It's not the most engaging of things. Mostly, I think I like the artwork. It's got this like animated series type of vibe, and it does even get gnarly when it needs to, but there's something about the art that's disconnecting with me from the story. I don't know. So it's all right, but it's not quite completely winning me over. And oh yeah, we got Something is Killing the Children, issue number 25. This brings to a close this latest arc, which has been called, what was it? Something about, yeah, The Road to Tribulation. So this wraps up this current arc, but just like the previous first, 20 issues of Something is Killing the Children, this is yet just chapter 1 of chapter 2, if that makes sense. But I really like it. So it's setting up a new threat. They've been setting up this new threat to Erica outside of the monsters from within her own organization, and they fully realized that threat in this issue, and it was absolutely fantastic. It's Exercise, celebrating 25 issues. Something is Killing the Children is still a very strong, solid book. The artwork by Deladera, Muerto, and the coloring, it pops and it works. The color's very brighter in this arc than we've seen in the previous arc, so I kind of like that and how that's going to juxtaposition itself against the previous arc, but I do like it. I like this run, I like this story, and I like this setup for what's to come. House of Slaughter is also out this week, but I have opted to stop reading that book because I haven't really been liking it. From Black Box Comics, we have Ninja Kaiden, issue number 1. This is written by Eric Palicki, who of course is a friend of the show, but also Bueller, who does product promotion for Black Box Comics. So Bueller's got his own credit there, and I think he's got his own cover. Bueller, when I saw him in May, was super pumped for this book. I like Eric Palicki. I like Bueller. I definitely want to check this book out, and I like it. It's about this dude. His company's developed this suit that allows you to see ghosts, touch ghosts, and stuff like that. Meanwhile, also, he's been trained in ninjutsu. So he's like a ghost hunting, ghost fighting ninja with his high-tech suit. It was really cool. I thought they did a great job of introducing the concept. It did get a bit exposition-y and just telly, but then it gets into some showy type stuff towards the end. I like the artwork. Clean, sleek, cool, interesting concept. I trust Palicki, and I kind of trust Bueller, and I definitely trust Black Box to continue doing what they're doing with that title. Then we got Kanto Tails from the Unnamed World, issue number 2, bringing to a conclusion this quick 2-issue miniseries. Kanto and some of his compatriots are on their way to the final battle, to the final book, the big momentous conclusion of Kanto, right? And on the way, they come across this bridge. This trickster shows up and is like, yo, you got to tell me a story I've never heard. You can't get across this bridge. So the first issue had some different artists and writers coming in, telling 2 different stories, right? None of those stories impressed the person guarding the bridge. And in this one, you get a few more stories, right? You get a different artist on one of these, but I think for the most part, they're actually written by David M. Boer. But I liked the stories. I liked the way this wrapped up, but I really liked how this focused a spotlight. This could have been very simply a throwaway story, just kind of trying to keep cash flow going until you get to the next big miniseries for Kanto, but this actually did some cool stuff with the characters. In particularly, what is it, the Malarfax? Is that what they call them? That was pretty cool. From Valiant Comics, we got Book of Shadows, issue number 1. This is written by Cullen Bunn, and it features Eternal Warrior, Punk Mambo, Persephone, Dr. Mirage, and Shadow Man. And it's got werewolves, and there's some kind of big thing going on, like the Dark Great Feast or something is upon us. And so you got all these different heroes from the Valiant Universe having to come together to solve it. More on the all the supernatural side of Valiant has to come together. It doesn't quite introduce concepts and characters to a new reader as cleanly as I would like, though if you have been reading the other stuff from Cullen Bunn, from Valiant, it's all been building kind of off of each other, so you may feel a little you may feel like it's a little disjointed or jarring, or not very much a good introduction if you're a new reader, but it was still fun, and it has some nice gnarly artwork, especially with the werewolves eating people and stuff. So Book of Shadows was all right. So that's what I read. That's what I thought about it. Superman Space Age, Detective Comics, those are the picks of the week. But then when you also got Swamp Thing and you got Nightmare Country, DC did some good stuff. Marvel's got some decent stuff out this week. Some cool concepts, some weak execution. Iron Cat's probably one of my favorites. So that Spider-Man book was really good. Public Domain hits everything. So does Beware the Eye of Odin. This one ramped up the action, the danger, the pace. Scorched is fun. I Hate This Place was absolutely brilliant. And Vampirella Year 1, very solid stuff. And Something's Killing the Children continues its trend of delivering a really solid comic. So that's what I read, that's what I dug, that's what I thought. What are you reading? What are you digging? What are you thinking? Let us know in the comments down below. Let's keep this conversation going. Thank you so much for checking out the video. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And join us over at patreon.com/PCP if you want to help support the channel. I've been Rockin' Robbie Billups. Thanks for rocking with us. Keep on reading. Station. Pop, pop, boom!